So it wasn't like Mr. Midlam or anything. It was, when Joe Short started. How long had Joe Short been at Pleasant prior to you coming?
I really don't know the answer to that. I think not too long. I don't think he'd been there too long. But I don't know for sure. That's one thing I don't know.
Because the one thing I keep hearing from people is just, the family camaraderie
Right.
that all the teachers had.
Right. Right.
I know, and when I interviewed Mr. Kirby, he stressed, I said, Mr. Kirby, you probably had an opportunity to go somewhere else. And he said, no, I was pretty comfortable with just, working
Right.
for, Mr. Midlam and Joe Short.
Right.
So, but the first question I got to ask you is Max Ross versus Don Kay.
Okay.
What's the difference?
There's not a big difference. Both of them were great motivators. Both of them were great coaches. I enjoyed every second I ever spent with Max, and I enjoyed every second I ever spent with Don. We won 2 state championships at Marion Catholic under Max. I come out to Pleasant, and under Don we win 2 more state championships. And I thought state championships just fell off trees. I didn't know you had to really work hard to get one. But it was such a delight working for those 2 gentlemen. They were both great athletes in their own right. Max Ross, a lot of people don't know this, he finished second in high school in a golf tournament to Arnold Palmer. And, of course, Don played at Ohio State, and, of course, the war took him away from Ohio State. But Don could have probably been a major league pitcher, great football player, just an all-around great guy, and enjoyed both of them.
So would you say their coaching styles were pretty much the same? They gave you levity when you were, an assistant for under both? I mean, they just trusted in you? Were they micromanaged coaches, or were they macro? Or
No, they weren't. Max gave me a lot of leeway. I played linebacker in college, so he kind of directed me to coaching linebackers and defensive ends. And when I came out to Pleasant, Don was great at letting me do my own thing, so to speak. And he liked the offensive side of the ball. I liked the defensive side of the ball. So I think between, with Gooker there and a lot of the other coaches, Ed Cackler, and Bill Bourne, Les McMillan, and just a bunch of them, Don gave us leeway to do our own thing. And I was really blessed. The one funny story, Don ran a 62 defense when I first came out there, and he asked me one time, he says, Larry, how do you like the 62 defense? And I said, can I be totally honest? And he said, yeah. I said, I hate it. And he said, well, what would you rather do? I said, I'd rather run a 5. I said, I know a 5 really well. And I said, Don, I think we'll be able to do a lot of things that you want to do out of a 5. He says, okay, and you know how Don is. I won't say what he said. He said, okay, then we'll go to a 5. And of course, the rest was history. I mean, the Kings, the Mocs, and the Midlands, and the Grangers, and all the guys, and we were able to do a lot of things that just really drove offenses crazy because of it. But
well, what was the scenario when you left Marion Catholic to go to Pleasant? Tell that story, how that happened.
Well, basically, I was started at the YMCA in Marion, and Vietnam War, of course, was in full bloom at that time, and I got my orders to go to Vietnam, so I went out and took my physical at Fort Hays, and I had taken a test to go to flight school in Texas to fly jets in Vietnam, and kept waiting to be called, and they had such a backup at the time, I didn't end up getting called. So Max Ross one night knocked on my door and standing there, and he said, I heard you played college football, would you be interested in coming to Marion Catholic? And I said, sure, I'd be glad to do that, but I can only stay for a short period of time because I'm going, to Vietnam. And so he said, well, come and stay as long as you can. Well, I did get called, to make a long story short, and I regret that I didn't, but I didn't. So I stayed with Max for a couple of years, and then he was pretty much getting ready to retire. And so he and Don Kay were best friends. So I'd known Don through the YMCA, so Don asked me if I'd be interested in coming out to Pleasant and help him coach and teach. And I said, well, sure, I'll think about it, because Max, I think, was going to go into private business and that sort of thing. And of course, he ran for sheriff. And so I ended up going out to Pleasant and with Don, and of course, that relationship, lasted till he passed away. And it was just a great time.
Tell me your recollection. I mean, I don't want to try to pin you down as far as who the best players were to coach, because I'm sure everybody was good, and I respect that. But that 72 season, was that? I mean, was that something, because you knew you guys were going to have to go to a playoff? There was going to be a one game. It wasn't like an AP UPI. You're going to be number one,
right?
And did you ever think during that course of that year that this? I mean, we're going to be undefeated. We're going to get there.
Yes, I'll be totally honest with you. I had coached Max and Terry King and Dave Mock in junior high and middle school track and what have you. So I knew that these guys were destined for greatness. There was just no question in my mind. And I say that coming out of a high school where we were state champs my junior year, run-up state champs my senior year. I've seen great players. There was no question that this was a team that was destined for greatness. We were strong at every position, Dennis, that it just was unbelievable. When we played the semifinal game, it wasn't even a contest, to be honest with you. It was over in the first quarter. Yeah. We were so superior. We got into that playoff game down in Delaware, and they had some fantastic athletes on their team too. And you've heard the story, I know you have, that I had a dream that we won on a fumble.
Yes.
And so I didn't even practice tackling that whole week. Don asked me, he says, Larry, have you lost your mind? I didn't see you tackle one time. I said, all we're doing, Don, is picking up fumbles, because we're going to win a state championship on a fumble. Well, a guy got a hold of this story from Columbus, came up and did a story on me having this dream. And I said, here's what I'm going to tell you. And I said, this is the basis for where I'm coming from. Great players in big games sometimes will lay the ball on the ground because they want to do so much for their team and they try so hard. That let me show you a little trick here that I learned from my high school coach who had played pro ball. He says, when the elbow comes away from the body, you cannot hold the football. You've got to keep it down. So when they start really working hard and trying to get that extra yard, the elbow starts to come away from the body. And when it does, we're going to knock that ball out. And I said, Dave Mark always said, opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. And I said, you're absolutely right. I said, when that ball's on the ground, we're going to pick it up and we're going to run for a touchdown and we're going to win a state championship. You say now it looks back, it looked like, I got something from up above, but I just knew this is what would happen because the great athletes we had in the backfield and, our ends, Mock and King and these guys, they just gave everything they had, and Ballinger and what have you. But anyhow, when they, I don't know why they tried to run the ball there at the very end, but when they did, King got in there and Millizer and all of them, and Jamie Bright had run one earlier, knocked the ball out, and Mark picks it up, and the rest is history. And I can still remember Don didn't see real well at the end of his career, and he looked at me and he says, "What happened?" I said, "You just won your second state championship. Go pick your trophy up." He started laughing. He said, "All right." But yes, Dennis, that was a fantastic time. Of course, a lot of people don't know we ran 44 straight games. So we would have run that even higher. But I don't know. Very few people know this. But we had a car wreck that stopped it. We always used to eat at Ponderosa. On the way back, we let the kids drive. Well, and I can't remember who was driving, but the car turned upside down right there in front of the fire department. And when we got there, these guys are coming out of the car, and Jamie Bright and a bunch of them. Well, Dr. Mock, David Det, was our team doctor.
Yep.
Of course, when you're in a car wreck, they're not about to let you play because I don't know if you've had a concussion or there's internal injuries and what have you. So we lost that game that night, and that was the end of our streak. But I'll tell you, there wasn't any problem. We just, Don and I remember Gooker, all of us, we just laughed and we said, well, we'll start another one, another streak. And that was our attitude. But
That was River Valley, wasn't it?
that was River Valley.
Yeah.
That was River Valley. And they did a nice job. But if we'd have had a full team that night, I think it could have been a different ball game.
Yeah.
No question. Not taking anything away from River Valley. But
One thing that people don't even probably remember about the Lorraine Clearview game was they had a quarterback there, Larry Fortner,
oh, fantastic.
that went to Miami of Ohio.
Right.
And there was a guy by the name of Ben Roethlisberger that broke all his records at Miami of Ohio.
Right. Right.
So Larry Fortner was not a slouch, and neither was that running back Jenkins.
Right. I mean, they were Division I athletes.
Yeah, they were. I mean, it was like you guys weren't playing.
Right.
Yeah.
And
But it was still a memory. I remember as a little kid, it was still looked like men against men out there.
yeah, right. But it was a great time.
How did you and Pat, or if you were married at the time, I don't know, how did you get from West Virginia to Marion?
Well, Pat and I were married in college. We got married after my sophomore year, and when I graduated from West Virginia Tech, where I came from, at that time, the YMCA was recruiting our college pretty heavy.
Okay.
And so Pat and I flew into Columbus and interviewed at Lima, Mount Vernon, and Marion, and we loved all three of them, but Marion really was our favorite. And so we ended up being offered a YMCA job, so that's how we ended up in Marion.
Wow.
And that was a great time.
What would you say if I asked you, like, if you had it to do all over again? Would you have not gone into teaching? Would you have stayed in teaching if you had it to do all over again, or do you think teaching, what you've done, has made who you are as a person?
There's no question. I did not go to college to become a teacher. I was going to go into the newspaper business, to be honest with you. The school the university where we went was big on newspapers. They even had a Gutenberg press. And because I had a very dear friend that was in the newspaper business in Parkersburg, and he got me interested in the newspaper business. After I was in it for a couple of years, I decided that's not what I really wanted to do. So the YMCA offered me an opportunity to come to Marion and do that. And then when Max Ross offered me an opportunity to coach and teach, I had no clue that would be something that I would love. Well, I fell in love with teaching and coaching, and at Marion Catholic and Pleasant, and teaching will grab a hold of you like nothing else that I know of. And we had opportunities to do a lot of other things, but we just decided that this was what we were destined to do.
Well, you took the next question. I mean, did you ever feel like you wanted to, like, I want to become a head coach somewhere? I mean, do I want to try this? Do I, or was family, community, that important to you at that time?
Well, there's no question. Family was very important to me. Pleasant was very important to me, mainly because of the relationships and the children or the students. you get caught up in a dentist. You go, you get hired, and then you start to develop friendships with Don Kay and all the other people, Ed Cackler, Bill Bourne, Bob Gooker, the list, Larry Wilcox, the list just goes on and on. And you get to a point where they're family. And you just, I guess you just don't think. I did take a couple of years off in the middle of it, and I started building McDonald's restaurants. And I'd had construction experience clear back into high school, and but I didn't like it. I mean, the job was fine. McDonald's was a fantastic place to work for, or firm to work for, but I missed the kids and I missed teaching, and so we gave that up. And now I've never regretted a minute of it.
So it's pretty much safe to say when you went to college, you never even probably were dreaming of teaching, and then it just
No, that wasn't something that I dreamed of.
So like nobody you growing up said, Larry, you'd be an excellent, person to be in education. Nobody even.
No.
Wow.
No, it was just something that evolved.
Is there any particular person that's you feel like made a big mark in your life?
Oh, there's so many of them, I can't tell you all of them. But I mean, Joe Short gave me my chance, like he did so many of us during that time. And I've worked for, let's see, 5 or 6, maybe 7 superintendents by this time, and he was by far one of the finest superintendents that I've ever known. And the rest of them were really good, but Joe had a way of making you feel special, and it was just something that stayed with me from the day I met him until I retired.
So it's probably safe to assume that's why he was able to keep a lot of people that he did at Pleasant then, because of him, like you said.
He was fantastic, and I doubt if you can talk to anybody that won't agree with that.
Right. What if you had something to do all over again? Is there anything is your bucket list filled now?
Yes. I'll be honest with you. With grandchildren, your bucket list is always filled. I have 0 regrets. Pat and I have talked about this many times. If we had our life to live over again, what would we do different? We both said nothing. We have enjoyed every relationship we've had with people here in Marion, with students, and we just got a visit from John Sloboda. John played football for us at Pleasant, and he's an orthopedic surgeon now. And but just stopping and reminiscing and talking about it, I said it's worth everything. Just to be able to talk to these, like at your event, seeing people you haven't seen for 15 or 20 years, and being able to reminisce and talk about their lives. It's fantastic.
What do you think about the difference between, since your son's in the teaching profession, so to speak, do you guys ever talk about the difference of teaching styles today versus when you were teaching? Do you think there's a big difference? Do you think there's an attitude difference of students, or?
No, I don't. I think, in my opinion, and of course I'm not that far removed from retirement, but when I finished up, the majority of the students are motivated beyond belief. They want to do well in sports. They want to do well in school. They want to make friendships and relationships, and they have a vision of what they want to do, Dennis, after they leave school. And I think, education has evolved, there's no question. But as far as the individual, I don't think they've changed at all.
So you don't think you'd say peer pressure today on a kid versus peer pressure on a kid, 25, 30 years ago, it's about the same? I mean, you look at society the way it is, and, I worry about kids today being, kind of stereotyped into something maybe they don't want to be. So I don't know. Would you say it's about the same, the peer pressure?
Well, I don't know. The peer pressure is great, and I don't care what era you're talking about. The peer pressure I can remember when long hair was an issue in Pleasant, if we can all remember that. Okay, that went by the wayside. Okay, you know, I think so many of the students today, if they're grounded, if they have good family roots and what have you, they do great. I mean, when I think, Pat and I were talking the other day, when I think of the number of doctors that have come out of Pleasant High School since I've been there, since the 60s, it's unbelievable. They got a tremendous education. They were driven beyond belief, but that's just one issue, or it's just one, occupation. But you just start spreading that occupation out. It's so wonderful to talk to students and say, well, what are you doing now? Well, Mr. Holman, I'm doing this and I'm doing that and what have you. And I have 3 children now and, and what have you. And it's fantastic, Dennis, just to see how far they want to go and how driven they are.
I asked Mr. Kirby this. I'm going to ask you the same question, but you've done it. And I asked Mr. Kirby if he ever had the desire to go, say, to a bigger school. You did.
Yes.
You went and taught at a much larger school. Matter of fact, you probably went to a school where they had as many kids in one grade as we had in the whole high school.
Right. Yeah.
So did you ever see a difference in that, or would you prefer one versus the other? Because you worked at a big school, you've worked at a small school.
Right. There's no difference. Okay. And there's really no difference. I think that the thing that you take 100 graduating, you take 500 graduating. Okay. It's amazing how quick you can get to know 500 students. When I was at Olentangy, you think, well, I won't even get to know some of these kids. Well, that's not true. It's amazing how you can get inside the how they react to you. And but it never was any different, in my opinion, between Pleasant, Ridgedale, Olentangy, Marian Catholic. They're still students, and they still want to achieve great things, and that's fantastic.
Yeah. If something, if people said, tell me something about Larry Holman I don't know, what would it be? Is there something out there that, Pat, maybe you can help him on this. What would be something we don't know about Larry that maybe we all, because he's got a charisma, he people come to him, but is there something like, does he like to go out and work in the yard and become a tree hugger, or so to speak? I mean, because what do you think?
I'm the one that enjoys working outside, and I won't let him cut the grass because he won't go in straight lines.
I'm not very good at it.
It's like he's on a toy and he's just riding around everywhere.
Oh, that's the way you get out of cutting the grass.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
I get that. No, I mean, I just, sometimes, you think you know somebody, and, I can actually see you both being great grandparents. That's a given. You'll like that.
We enjoy that.
But I mean, is there just like, did you ever see him lose his temper one time? And I don't ever want to see that again.
Hardly ever.
Well, that's
We've been married 56 years, and I bet
Congratulations.
we haven't had 5 fights in all those years.
She won them all, so it doesn't.
yeah. It's 5-0. It's 5-0.
There is something that most people don't know that just happened recently, though. The governor of West Virginia, Jim Justice, just honored Larry with the Distinguished Outstanding Citizen of West Virginia.
Nice.
And they
Nice.
presented it to him back at his high school. We had a big get-together. Once a big red, always a big red, and all the teams were there, and the parents, cheerleaders. I had to, when they called his name, he was so shocked. I had to push him off the chair for him to go up front, and then he couldn't talk.
They caught me off guard, didn't they? Believe me.
Oh, what a nice, that was very nice.
That was
Yeah.
presented to him by one of the congressmen from Wood County
Wow.
in West Virginia.
So what do you two do now? I know you're working on the new ballot for the campaign for Pleasant, but what do you two like to do other with grandchildren because they're not here 24/7? So what do you guys like to do?
We like to travel. We've been very blessed because of our children to travel a lot of the world. And when our children were missionaries in Africa, I got to go to Africa and spend time with them at the missionary hospital. And Pat and I got to go to France when they were in France and enjoyed that. And we've been to Greece and England and Belgium and what have you. So, and Eric and Tam, we got to go to Hawaii with them. So we enjoyed traveling, but we've cut that back quite a bit now to the point where
We can't stand to be away from the
we
grandkids.
want to be around the grandkids. So
They're all in sports now. We
Yeah.
try not to miss too many
yeah,
games.
we're sort of like the fresh hours. We try to show up to everything they do, but we enjoy every second of that.
Larry, what you were? Well, your birthday's what day? When
April 7th.
April 7th.
42.
8:42.
I'm an oldie.
Yeah, but you know what? You picked the right one. 56 years.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, what is it safe to assume your favorite color is red?
I love red
Yeah, we both have
because
them.
it's pleasant. Big red machine, right?
I asked Mr. Kirby what his favorite color was, and he said green. I was sitting there. But, anyways, one it just came to my mind. You know, when I asked Mr. Kirby this question, you guys win the state championship.
Right.
The next night, it's on a Friday. The next night, these guys take off shoulder pads, and they got to play a basketball game.
I know. Amazing.
I mean, and you know, in Mr. Kirby's recollection, which I'm going to thoroughly believe, said that the Marian Catholic coach wanted to call off the game. They wanted to call it off,
I think that was right.
and Stan said, "No, we're gonna play it."
No honor, sure.
And but I mean, can you just talk about that? How guys can go from football cleats to tennis shoes?
I don't really know the answer to that. I just know that great athletes, which we had at that time, great athletes. I don't care what kind of ball you put in their hands, they seem to be able to handle it. And these guys were so motivated and such outstanding athletes that I don't think it really probably entered their mind as just give us the ball and we'll show you what to do with it. And you know, those guys, you know, win a state championship in basketball and just great coaches, fantastic athletes, and it was just a fantastic time.
You know, and the other thing, I guess you're credited for getting the wrestling program up and running. And, you know, you've seen what that has produced. My good friend is coming into town this weekend. So Wes Hines
Oh yeah,
will be here and state champion. But, I mean, that was kind of rough beginning, wasn't it?
it was very rough. I'd only wrestled 1 year in high school, and so when they asked me to start, this was in 1971-72, and when they asked me to start the program, I said, there's a lot about wrestling I don't know, but there's a lot that I know that I learned from my high school coach that I can pass on. So we had a tremendous turnout. I still have the plaque they gave me, you know, at the end of the season with all the guys' names on it. And but they worked extremely hard, and I think we ended up didn't have a winning season, but we won quite a bit. And once we got it started and got it rolling, Then, of course, Dave Camp took over after me, and the list just goes on and on of all the great wrestling coaches. And, of course, Coach Short, took us to new heights as far as I'm concerned. And, but, like you're talking about Wes Hines and Scott Duncan and Duncan and Hines and Dale Fry was first state qualifier from Marion County, not just from Pleasant, from Marion County. And the list just goes on of all the great wrestlers. But it was such a fun time. It was very hard, but it was a great time. And matter of fact, my whole basement was set up for wrestling in the summertime, and we enjoyed every second of it. And of course, under Coach Robinson now, the program just continues to flourish, and that was fantastic.
It's one thing that I know that I admire in you is the fact that you were able to start something from the ground up and to get kids attracted to that. That's a pretty good feat.
Thank you.
Appreciate
that.
Is there anything you'd like to say that, it's, I know your bucket list is filled and the grandkids are happy, but is there something that, I know you want to see the levy pass.
No question about that. We live in a fantastic community, I want to tell you that much. The school system has been fantastic for a long, long time. The teachers that I taught with were just unbelievable. I loved every one of them. They were fantastic. The teachers of their day are dedicated beyond belief. I don't think there's any question, Dennis. It's time that we do something for our school district, and I think we have an opportunity to do it now. I would love to see this levy passed. I would love to see a new high school. It has nothing to do with the old buildings because the memories will still be there. They'll never die, I'll guarantee you. And I think when you analyze everything that we're trying to do for not only children today, but our grandchildren, the future generations to come, I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, the people in Pleasant School District will know that they're special, the school's special, the students are special, and they've gone around the world. I mean, the things that these graduates have done is just unbelievable. So I'm hoping and praying that the community will see the need is real, that we can build a legacy, like Mrs. Adams talks about, building a legacy that will last our lifetime and many, many years beyond that. So that's our wish. Pat and I have talked about it, and we hope and pray that it'll happen.
Well, guys, thank you. Thank you for letting me come into your house. That was fun.
Sure we will.
There's a lot of stuff here on tape where, as Larry said, it's off record, so we got that out of the way first. But this was a great interview and a great way to end this, and let's hope that this levy gets passed.